Manchester United have agreed a deal to bring Benjamin Sesko to Old Trafford. Now, the first thing that we need to discuss here, the first thing that becomes so apparent about who Manchester United are, about what Manchester United represent, about the history of Manchester United, just about the fibre of the club, is that the prestige is still so totally intact. They may have finished 15th last year. They may have lost to Tottenham in a European final. They may have had a decade of misrule. They may have had some really uninspiring times of late. But what you cannot ever question is the greatness of Manchester United. What you can never question is where they rank in the pantheon of great football teams, iconic teams, behemoth teams. Manchester United have just gone out off the back of a pitiful season, an embarrassing season, one of the worst seasons that they've ever had, one of the worst seasons that they've had in my lifetime that I can remember, one of the worst Manchester United teams that I think has ever existed, according to the current Manchester United manager, one of the worst teams that Manchester United have ever had. And what have they done? They have gone out into the transfer market and they have made a bold statement. They have signed one of the young, hot prospects, a prodigious talent in football, one of the most sought-after strikers in Europe. They've gone out and they have signed him. Couple that with the fact that Brian Amorim was destined for St James's Park, a team that won silverware last year, a team that are in the Champions League, until Brian Amorim said, absolutely not, I'm going to go and play for Manchester United. We may talk about how the great have fallen. We may talk about the institution that is Manchester United. We may talk about where they rank in the pantheon of greats. But the truth of the matter is that even off the back of this decade of misrule, even off the back of one of the worst seasons that they have ever had, they still have the pulling power beyond any reasonable club. They still are comparable to the very greats of the game, even finishing 15th. The Sesko signing teaches us that. The Sesko signing proves to us that they are still incredibly significant and are comparable to Bayern Munich, Real Madrid, Barcelona, Liverpool, etc. That is who they are, because they have gone out into the transfer market and they have signed one of the hottest goal scorers in Europe. And it really is huge. It's a huge signing. It's huge for what it means to Manchester United. It's huge for what it means for their aspirations next year. And maybe most importantly, it's huge for the existing Manchester United players. Like, off the back of a 2-2 draw that Manchester United got in the States in a friendly against Everton, Bruno Fernandes was livid. He got involved in an argument. It was a terrible goal conceded. It wasn't good. And Bruno Fernandes labelled his Manchester United mates as lazy. He said they were lazy and he said they desperately needed more signings. Suddenly what happens? Sesko arrives. Bruno Fernandes' concerns are totally adhered to. And this is a brilliant, brilliant day for Manchester United. It's a brilliant day for anyone associated with the club. It's a brilliant day if you've ever, in your entire life, stood in the Stretford end. It's a brilliant day for Adam McCullough. It's a brilliant day for everybody associated with the team. It may not be such a brilliant day, however, for Arne Slot. And I wonder, if you are a Liverpool fan, is there now a concern that Benjamin Sesko is now not going to Newcastle United? If you're a Liverpool fan, if you're Arne Slot, were you hoping that Benjamin Sesko would go to Newcastle United? That would free up Alexander Isak to go to Liverpool. Newcastle United would be far more likely to sell Alexander Isak if they had Benjamin Sesko in their ranks. Is that a concern for you? I don't know. Have Manchester United almost operated here with a double-edged sword? Have they attacked and strengthened their own team with one side of the sword, but then equally hampered their biggest and greatest rival with the other? I mean, I still see a world where Alexander Isak ends up at Liverpool. I believe that Alexander Isak will be a Liverpool player regardless of this. But often with regard to the transfer window, we see a domino effect, don't we? A goes to B so that B can go to C, and it frees up money and this and that. And there is an entire spider's web of how these things come together. And a really easy angle of deducing this spider's web is you go, Newcastle signs Sesko. They no longer have a place in the team for Alexander Isak through the middle. Isak is therefore surplus to requirements. I'm putting this spin on it, the sheen on it that Newcastle will use. Therefore, they can sell to Liverpool. Now that isn't going to happen. And I wonder the impact of that. We will see. But focusing solely on Manchester United, focusing on this deal, what it means for Manchester United, I feel that it's about as good as it could get. There isn't really a world where they could sign anybody better than Benjamin Sesko. It is such an upgrade on what they have. And let's remember that Manchester United last season scored just 44 goals. 44 goals. It's a pitiful amount of goals to score for a side like Manchester United. And the fact that that's all they could score is a worry. So what have they done this window? They have gone out and they have signed Brian Mbeumo, a player who scored goals galore last year. They signed Matheus Cunha, a player who scored loads of goals and is responsible for loads of goals. You could almost argue that those two players themselves are worthy of 44 goals. They have now brought in Benjamin Sesko, and that really is huge. It really is, because the elevation in that front line, I mean, it is going to be unrecognisable. And look, I don't like their owners. I don't like their owners at all. I like the institution of Manchester United to be respected, and I don't believe that the ownership, either past or present, are necessarily doing that in the way that they should. But what we must acknowledge is that they've gone out into the transfer market and they've improved their squad where they most needed it. They've gone out and they have elevated and given the manager options that they need. Mbeumo in, and they had to fight to get Mbeumo, and they got him. Cunha in, an excellent signing, a wise signing, a signing that they got over the line almost immediately. Suddenly, you throw Sesko into that front three, it could be electrifying, couldn't it? Bruno Fernandes backing it up. It suddenly looks like Manchester United have goals. It suddenly looks like Manchester United are potent. It suddenly looks like Manchester United are capable of accruing a very reasonable points tally next year and could be a threat to teams who are hoping to qualify for Europe. So I think overall the elevation is huge. And then you can almost amplify the elevation by talking about who is no longer going to be in the starting lineup if Sesko is leading the line. The tide is rising, and it is rising so drastically because you are taking Rasmus Højlund out of the team. So a word on Rasmus Højlund and the fact that he is now surplus to requirements for Manchester United is about as brilliant as anything could be this window for them. Like, Rasmus Højlund is the worst player that I've ever seen wear the famous Red Devils badge on his heart. He is about as unworthy of wearing that shirt as any other footballer that I can ever think in the history of the game. You know the players that we often talk about and deride in the bygone era, worst players who have ever played for Manchester United. People talk about Luke Chadwick. People talk about Jemba. People talk, like, sometimes weirdly, people talk about Kleberson, and it's just not true. Like, Rasmus Højlund was so out of his depth. It was embarrassing watching him. I felt sorry for him. I'm somebody who literally never wants Manchester United to win a game of football. I've never ever wanted Manchester United to win a game of football in my entire life. And I looked at a lot of their players with hostility. With regard to Højlund, I felt sorry for him. And that tells you everything that you need to know. So the fact that he is no longer in the team is massive. Now, they need to get him out, because what Manchester United need to do now, and this is the hallmark of a good window or a bad window, it's the revolving door. They had that bomb squad, didn't they? They've got Rashford out. They've got his wages out. That is big. And they've got one out that they needed to get out. And that will have freed up a lot of money for them. They just need to make sure that they keep this revolving door moving. And I saw a very troubling headline for Manchester United fans. It was something along the lines of, Manchester United are willing to accept a mere £30 million for Rasmus Højlund, but he wants to stay and fight for his future. And if you're a United fan, you just got, God, please no, draw a line under this. It's not personal, it's just you aren't capable of leading the line. So hopefully, from a Man United perspective, and looking at this strictly through the lens of what's good for them, they can get rid of him. And then you think of the other players that could leave. And we're now talking about the bomb squad. They need to get Jadon Sancho out. They need to get Alejandro Garnacho out. And obviously, if they did get rid of him, that would be a lot of profit. You know, it's looking like we're going to sign him, which I'm really not up for, but it's looking like we're going to sign him, which would be interesting. There's a lot of, I think Saudi clubs are looking at Tyrell Malacia, so there's that going on, and obviously Anthony, Sancho, they need to leave. But if all of those things do happen, there is a world where we could actually look at this window for Manchester United and see it as being quite positive. You know, they've brought in money, haven't they, for additional sell-on for Anthony Elanga. And overall, where Manchester United really struggled last year was scoring goals. The manager has been given a new look front line. That is impressive. Now all they need to do is rectify some other areas of the team where they desperately need reinforcements. I mean, I would say the goalkeeper. If I were a Manchester United fan, I would say you cannot go into a new season with Andre Onana. But there is still time. There is a lot of goings on still to happen. And the fact that today they have got Benjamin Sesko over the line can only be seen as a good day for Manchester United. The impact of this, the repercussions of this, the ramifications of this are potentially huge, because Sesko is now a United player, which means Sesko is now not a Newcastle United player, which means maybe Alexander Isak is going to have to start the season at Newcastle United because he will not be sold until a replacement is brought in. And let's remember, Callum Wilson has already left there. So I love it when the window gets like this. You know, when it starts becoming a to and a fro in and it's all getting very exciting. So we are going to have to see how this goes. But the bottom line here is Manchester United have gone out into the transfer market and they have signed a young, prodigious talent that was on everyone's radar. Do remember that Mikel Arteta was desperate to sign Benjamin Sesko. He wanted him more than Gyökeres. That isn't the opinion of Berta or the club, but that's how good this player can potentially be. And if it works for Manchester United, they have got an elite level forward on their hands for about a decade. Really good signing, impressive work from them because, again, it looked like he was going in a different direction and suddenly he lands at Old Trafford. As always, I really do appreciate you watching this video. I hope you've enjoyed it. If you have, would you please give it a like? It really does help me out and I would love to welcome you into this community. So please do click that subscriber button. Really helps me out. And as I say, it'd be great to have you part of what we're trying to build here. As always, looking forward to reading your comments. And I will now just say cheers. Have a wonderful day. There's a lovely cup of rosy lee there. Green.